are all these sidetracks to the journey. It's very similar. If you've ever seen the movie Pilgrim's Progress, you'll see that's what the journey's like. You have to learn to avoid these paths on the edge that can take you off the narrow path. And so just absorb with your spirit, not your mind. And what we're going to do today is then to do it more as an encounter and an impartation and an activation that we do in some of our groups. And we want you to engage this, actually engage heaven as we're talking, so that we're not having an intellectual debate that won't impact our spirit. So this is the first time I've done this. So I'm really dependent on the seven spirits here. So we welcome and we honor you. And I honor Bill, who's joining us today, one of the fathers in the house who has had major revelation on the journey. And we honor Lady Wisdom and the handmaidens, and we really begin to entangle with the whole of the bench of one, which is everyone in heaven, for your immense counsel, understanding, knowledge, wisdom, fear of the Lord, for life, for truth, for all these spirits that all these concepts that we really need to entangle with. We can't intellectually work out how they're going to help us. We just have to really join with them as the bench of one. So as we begin, one of the first points is around what do we have to do to contribute to bring new earth. It's a huge, huge question. So let's just engage together in the heavenly realms. Let's set our spirit on going to the highest realm that our identity can cope with. You may want to ask what that realm is. It may be different for different ones. For those who know where they operate, they can ask or choose to operate from that area. So begin to entangle with the bench of one to bring your understanding in your spirit. So your mind, doesn't matter that your mind doesn't know anything right now, because you're opening a door that this revelation will come to you in due course, because you've set your desire on it. So it doesn't come to us when our desire is not there. When we say we're in overwhelm, it's all too much, I'm not worthy, I'm not intelligent enough, who am I to be doing this? I'm only called to do this small element as a king. We're called to all this, and we are able to cope. We have to dig deep for our identity as a tree, as we arc, as two trees. There's a tree of life, and we are a tree as well. We arc with Jesus, the other tree of life, and we dig deep with our roots to give us the capacity to have the identity to deal with these massive, massive questions.
Yeah. As you were speaking, Destiny, Jane's new name is Destiny, I was seeing roots going deep down and branches growing high up. So both directions, roots deep down and the branches growing high up towards heaven, into the heavens. That's turning into an encounter. So,
anything else you want to add on? What do I have to do to contribute to bring in new earth?
Well, I could do a dialogue on that, but I don't think I want to do dialogue at this point.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll just leave it at that because we've got a lot of points.
Yeah, yeah, and each person, I believe, is getting a revelation of their own at this point, either right on the spot or because you've opened yourself up to this revelation, it will come to you at the right time, come to your conscious mind at the right time. The download may very well be happening right at this moment as you're opening yourself up to it, having desire for it, and believing that this is part of your destiny. This is part of what Jesus died to give you. It's part of what the full package that he's given you because of his death, burial, and resurrection, because you're one with him, is full identity.
Yeah, so there's many scriptures that talk about the end of the world and how it's going to end. And I see a mature son who really knows and desires to get a clear understanding of what it means and what impact it has on them.
Yeah.
We're seeing about a tipping point as well.
One thing about anything to do with end times is the first thing we have to do is let go of our current understanding, or there's no room for something potentially different as far as the Father, the Godhead revealing truth to us from their perspective. We first let go of what we've got and are willing to hear what they want to tell us. I see that as a trade at the Sea of Glass.
Yeah.
And you
throw a huge
trading in the old for the new. We do that all the time.
Yeah, there's a huge trade that has to go on with understanding around what's the consuming fire, and is that hell? Are we burning in hell with separation if we don't accept Christ before we die? Or is that consuming fire actually a purifying love fire that doesn't mean that you're going to be separated, but that you get a chance to respond when you've seen the big picture after you've died? So there's huge revelation we've seen, that we see the sons need to begin to seek the whole bench of one on that. It's a huge thing, and the question, are we just waiting for God, or are we actually, God's waiting for us? And if God's waiting for us, that's huge. The implications are massive for the extent to which we must accelerate into that right now. Because the second big question is, what season are we in? Mm-hmm. Mature sons, they know what season they are in. And that is a season for either your, for the earth, and also the season for you as a forerunner that may go ahead of where the earth is at, but you may be in a particular age and operate from that, and therefore you're calling in the earth into that age. So some say that currently we are in the ecclesia, the earth, the church in the earth's timeline right now is in the kingdom age, which has moved beyond a church age, recognizing that it's not just about the things we see in traditional church, but we've begun to see God as a kingdom, not a collection of churches and denominations, and what denomination are you in? But we're in one kingdom of God. There's an age we've seen after that called the ecclesia age. And if you just set your spirit now to be able to download to you what age the earth's at, and what age are you operating at? Are you operating as complete priesthood of all believers in the ecclesia age, where you see it as an organic organism, not any institution with boards, with bank accounts, with regulations, people over you making decisions, benches of three over you, setting policy? Or are we all responsible, equal participants in the things that we're engaging with. This is the beginning of the ecclesia age. And then there are ages beyond that.
Age of
So,
Melchizedek.
yeah. So hunger after that, to know that, because it's such a big element.
Yeah. Again, open yourself up to that. Your desire is the key. And then exercising your faith, receiving a download of revelation. You may very well be conscious of the download of revelation right now and just begin to sense the content of it. Or you may sense it's just downloaded and it'll be coming into your mind at a later time. Or for you, it may simply be that you're saying, yes, I'm willing. At some later point, you'll move into it. But without desire, without willingness, without exercising faith, it doesn't happen. It's all available. But
so we have some other big questions. That the end of the book of Revelation, once you begin to open your spirit to it, embrace the question, is it complete? Or is it for me right now to stand by Jesus doing some of the acts that Jesus did in the last 5 chapters of the book of Revelation? You will begin to see a whole big picture that is way beyond normal kingship, solving the problems of the world, way beyond chancellorship, way beyond sonship, really, because you're really beginning to move into understanding of the full Son of God being next to Jesus, doing these massive acts for restoring the blueprint to how it really was. But even, well, you can go beyond that original blueprint, but that's part of what has been highlighted to us in the book, is that these things must come to pass. So we can't just ignore that because we maybe haven't had that in encounter. We must combine our encounters with the Word of God to make sure that we're still on that narrow path. So the tribulation is a huge question there. Is the tribulation finished? And therefore we don't have to consider about that. A big question to ask. The tribulation is actually more the start of Revelation, and rather than the end. But you have to ask, where are we in the book of Revelation?
again, that's something you trade your current understanding in for. So I'm willing to receive this from the Godhead directly.
The 144,000, it talks there. What does it say there, Bill, the verse? About 144,000 standing on Mount Zion.
Yes.
So a big question is, are you part of that? Who are they? Are you part of them? Can you choose to be part of them? A massive question, because it appears to be quite a critical point. Once these people have to get into place, and they seem to be ones that have the special relationship. So that's a big question to set your desire on, and I think you'll find you will have such a hunger to begin to do discovery encounters for that. That's been our testimony. We have done so many encounters on what are they? Are we part of them?
Yes, and it directly relates to New Jerusalem also, because the wall of New Jerusalem is 144 cubits. If you put in a Bible search engine, put in the 144, you'll find 3 verses in Revelation about the 144,000 and 1 verse in Revelation about the 144 cubits. So New Jerusalem and the 144 go together, and that can all be done by encounter. The whole book, the full name of the book of Revelation is the revelation of Jesus Christ, the revelation of the overcoming, the revelation of Jesus, the overcoming King, is the way I translate that for myself. And that whole book is one encounter after another that John had. And you can step into encounter from pretty much anywhere in the book of Revelation, step into encounter and have a download of Revelation directly from the Godhead with respect to the elements of that book.
Yes, so there are a couple of other major events that are listed there. One is the plagues. Are we before or after the plagues? Do we have a part to play in the plagues? Just set your spirit now to want the desire to answer that. Because what you're doing is you're choosing to take responsibility for these major, major things.
And there's a general principle behind this. And the general principle that you'll hear from Jane all the time is asking questions of God. As many as ask, receive. So you ask questions and God answers.
Yeah. But it seems to be he waits for you to ask the questions.
He doesn't answer a question that hasn't been asked.
Yeah. And it's almost a sign of maturity when you start to have a desire to have those questions answered. It shows something about your maturity. Because I honestly was not into this at all. I mean, I really didn't want to know, and I found it all too heavy and theological, and people told me, it was all for another age. Well, when is that age ever going to come? One generation has to begin to ask, is that them? And that's what hit me. And when you look at all the other signs, there's a very good chance that we are in this end times. We don't want to go into why, but there's a lot of signs and things going on that match the scriptures. So another one is Babylon. Huge question there of the earth needing to come out of Babylon.
Yeah, come out of Babylon. Yeah.
So you can just right now begin to open yourself up as a gate to the revelation of what Babylon is about, and wanting to find out how that impacts your life today, how you live spiritually, how you live practically. There's many huge implications of coming out of Babylon that can contribute to a very dynamic spiritual life in the realms, according to what extent we come out of Babylon. The other is the great harvest. A mature son can sit next to Jesus. It talks about Jesus using the sickle to bring in the great harvest. So what is that great harvest? We just set our spirits now to hunger after the full picture of that great harvest. Is it beyond revival? Is it beyond living people here? Could it compass people who've died, people who've Well, it could even encompass things to do with the first resurrection and the second resurrection. Could there be an overlap? Because Revelation talks about two resurrections, two deaths, first death and the second death. Another major question to set your spirit to ask, what is the first death and what is the second death? You will begin to understand what are some of the issues we need to address that are way bigger than solving the earth's problems. And this is why, see, the sons, almost in a way, you are solving the earth's problems by dealing with these concepts. So it's not like you have to abandon your care for humanity, but you you are choosing a greater strategy, if you like, and that will contribute to the suffering of mankind and bring in the more perfect blueprint.
Yeah, reducing the suffering of mankind. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just take a moment. Just have a few minutes silence. Just see if you see anything, hear anything, feel any entangling. And as you enjoy the moment of expanding your spirit into the biggest picture, and what you're doing as well is you are allowing your spirit to go into many different realms. And some of us see that's an element of being in Metatron's cube, that you're now big enough in your identity to encompass lots of different realms, concepts, understanding. You're not just focused on New Jerusalem or eternity or Mount Zion as a king. You are saying it's all got a part and a role. The other two big concepts are fathering. Are we all called to be a father? Or is that just for a few? And what is the creation story, and what happened? Of course, even in the first couple of verses, there are major things in the first three chapters of Genesis that have to be grappled with. We have just open your spirit now to want to grapple with those, to see the purpose. It wasn't for a time that's over, but it impacts how we act now, because how we see the creation story affects how we see the big picture. Expand your spirit, man, that wants to understand this. It's a joy and a blessing and an adventure to begin to see what was Father's original blueprint. Why did it go wrong? Why did he have to allow this or that? Why do we have the history that we do that's recorded in the Bible? So I hope this has been helpful for you. Bill, anything else you want to add?
I just wanted to say again that this whole principle of asking questions these particular questions are important questions to ask, and you're opening yourself up to be given answers to these questions, but you may have others also. And the general principle of asking questions and receiving answers from God is part of what moves you along your own personal journey into your identity in Christ, in oneness with Christ.
Yeah, and it's quite staggering how you grow in your capacity, one, to comprehend these things, secondly, to be able to hear in the spirit when you do encounters, and thirdly, the hunger for it, because which then leads to you wanting even more. So then you go on to the bigger picture because you've understood one part, and it's quite staggering that it's I really believe everyone is designed and is able to grasp these concepts, and it's our limitations of what we've felt Christianity is about that has squashed us down to say, oh, this is just for a few. And I'm testimony to that. I really found this overwhelming years ago. And it's and now I actually don't find it overwhelming, and I have such a hunger for these things, for people to see. In fact, we've been through so many encounters on all these topics. I actually have a desire to go back and do some more to get even deeper revelation. Now that I understand the big picture, I'm much better to understand the big picture, because it all begins to put all the pieces together, and you can do the jigsaw puzzle quicker. Yeah, it's interesting.
It's part of your face-to-face, one-on-one relationship with the Godhead, is asking questions and receiving answers. The Godhead's delighted. I mean, they've been waiting for you to start the conversation. I mean, I suppose they've started the conversation, but for you to get actively involved in conversation with them.
Yes, and it's such an honor to be part of these massive acts. And the more you see it as honor and less as overwhelming theology, the more you will see what a privilege for us that we're called to be part of the huge destiny of the earth and the huge restoration and creation of new realms. It is the biggest honor a son can have, and I think that's how I see it. That's why it's so appealing to me, and why I feel to speak on it a lot. Because it's all part of my calling to not take camp. And if we take camp in solving the world's problems and we miss this, it will pass to another generation who have the identity and the hunger and the desire and intimacy with the Godhead that want the big picture. It will pass to another, and the suffering will continue, and the smaller destinies will continue. So it's our choice as to whether we want this for our generation or not. And that I just find is the biggest honor, that the ball's in our court. Wow, it's just incredible. I mean, I honestly didn't think this was the case before I went in with this. It's incredible. So thank you, everyone. I think we'll leave it there, and we'll be back next week with more elements around the big picture.
Okay. And very good. I'm just going to shut the recording down. We have a